Cliff Barron for Remax here for my weekly update for October 4th to the 10th for Milton, Georgetown, and Glen Williams. And before I get there, I want to talk about tips for home inspection. When the market is crazy like it is now, I always tell people always put a home inspection in, but there's times when you just can't. And right now is one of those times when if you put an offer in on a property, as an example, I put an offer on a property last week for some clients. We were 10% higher than the other offer, the highest offer, but we lost because we had a home inspection clause in there and a financing clause. But I'm not talking about financing right now. I'm talking about home inspection. So occasionally you have to forgo the home inspection, but there's a lot of risks involved in that, as everybody knows. So I'm going to give you some pointers here. I've been to over 200 home inspections in my career. I'm not the inspector. I go with the inspector and I follow him around. And over the years, I've also renovated my house from top to bottom by myself. So I have a pretty extensive knowledge about construction. But still, I recommend people get a home inspection. But if you can't, in an instance where they're holding off the offers and you think there's going to be 8-10 offers, then you just can't put a home inspection in because you simply won't get the home. You'll spend that $400 for nothing. So what I recommend is you do first visit just to see the house, and then the next visit, which is an hour long, you take that time to do your own kind of home inspection with your agent. And here's a few pointers of what you should look for. Don't take this as gospel. You have to consult your professional about this, but here's a real kind of a rough rundown of what you should look for if you can't do the home inspection. So first of all, start in the basement of the house. As you know, look for cracks in the walls. If the basement's finished and you can't see anything behind drywall, it's impossible to see behind drywall, use your nose. Your nose is a big indicator of moisture, mold, because the main thing with a home inspection is water. You don't want water damage anywhere in the house. That's the big thing. Another thing too, when it comes to the basement, if it's a finished basement, check out airflow, which many inspectors don't even catch this. But there's supposed to be air coming out of the furnace and air going back into the furnace. So there should be supplies and returns in the basement in every room. And that's rare. A lot of people kind of don't think about that because they think of the airflow upstairs. Then, go in the furnace room, check out the age of the furnace. You can see if it has white pipes, then it's fairly new. If it has black pipes, it's older. It's a mid-efficiency. And then don't forget when you're in the basement, if it's an unfinished basement, to look up. Even if it's finished, look up. Because you want to check out the floor joists above you, or ceiling joists, whatever you want to call it, to make sure they're not cut. I've seen that before right from builders where they've purposely cut things to put ductwork in and compromise the structure, but somehow it passes inspection from the town. Okay, once you've done that, go to the electrical panel. You can't open it because you're not an inspector, but you can also look at the wiring coming into it. If you see aluminum wiring, then you'll know that's one thing to keep in mind. You got to see if it's breakers or fuses. If it's fuses, then you're going to have to upgrade it eventually, which is, it's going to cost you a few bucks. Let's see. And then once you've done the basement, that's the quick rundown of the basement. Go to the main floor, check out the windows. The windows are a big thing. If they're vinyl, they should last quite a while. If they're wood, then the last 15 to 20 years, they got to be replaced. And it's funny, replacing windows before they're due is not a great idea because the money you save or you lose on the escape of hot air doesn't equate to the cost of the windows. So it's better to run your windows until they're right at the end, but you don't want them to leak. That's the big thing. You don't want moisture coming in. Look for GFIs. That's another thing in the bathrooms, in the kitchen. It's got to be within a meter of water. If you see any plugs, they should be a GFI plug. And again, like I said, in the basement is look up. In every room, look up because you want to check for moisture. You want to check for stains. If you do see any stain, then go upstairs and kind of track it. You'll probably find it's underneath the bathroom. And usually in bathrooms, the main culprit is the toilet because they use a rubber flange a lot in the toilet and the flange shrinks over time. Replace it with wax and you're good to go. And then another thing too you can look for is slow drains. Go into every bathroom and check the drainage. You want to make sure there's you don't have a basin fill up with water, doesn't drain properly. Then when you go to the upstairs, look up again. You can't go in the attic. That's one thing you can't do. Well, you kind of can, but I don't know. That's kind of you don't want to damage somebody's house. You know what I mean? That's if you're just there, you're not qualified to do that, so I wouldn't suggest it. But look up. That's a big thing. Look for stains again, because if there's stains on the second floor, then there's no plumbing above you, so there's a good chance that was from a roof, compromising the roof. And then when you go outside, you're going to have to do an exterior inspection. That's what I call it, but it's not really an inspection, just a visual inspection. You're going to be checking for the brickwork to see if there's any cracks, and you have to check the grading of the property to make sure it slopes away from the house as well, because you don't want water pooling towards the foundation. And then take a visual inspection of the roof. If it's starting to curl, you're not going to have many years left, and possibly, you don't know, but how long it's been curling for. So that's a red flag if you see that. So hopefully that helps you out. Anyways, that's a little bit. It's always best to get a home inspection, like I said, but sometimes you just can't. Otherwise, you'll never get the house, and you'll be sitting on the sidelines, and that's it. If you find a house you love, do one of these visual inspections and expect a little bit of money to be spent down the road after you take over ownership. But if you do this, hopefully you won't run into some major problems. If you have any questions about this, I know so much about it. Just send me a DM, PM, whatever, and I'll help you out. Anyways, getting to the sales for Milton and Georgetown. Milton, the sales were 50 sales this week as opposed to 39 last year, so sales are still pretty healthy. Last week we did 48 this week as opposed to 50 last week. So it slowed a little bit, but not much. Compared to last year, we're not slowing as much. And the average detached sold for $1,091,000 this last week. There was 23 of those, 19 towns at 764. The towns have really gone up. That's interesting to know. It's kind of like a train where the detached are starting to slow a bit, the big detached, because they're priced so high, but the towns are catching them up now, and then they'll start pushing them forward again. And 6 semis sold at 804, 3 days on the market. And the days on the market are, within a week, everything's pretty much selling. Then we get to Georgetown and Glen Williams. Georgetown is actually picked up a little bit. Last week it was a little slower. This week it's picked up a bit. There was 20 sales in Georgetown as opposed to 15 last week. And that's last year there was the same this week as the same as last week. So you can see it's picked up a little bit, which is kind of interesting. The average detached home sold for $961, and there was 19 sales, 6 days on the market, and that was it. There's no semis, there was no towns sold this week, which is interesting. And the average detached is a little bit lower than last week, but that's because there weren't any big ones sold. When you get the big ones in Glen Williams or some of the bigger properties, it's kind of skews the numbers up a little bit. Whereas it's funny, 961 is a little detached. So anyways, that's it. Hopefully this helps you out. Any questions, let me know. And again, it's Cliff Barron from Remax with my weekly update. Send me a DM, PM, email, old-fashioned phone call. I'm always here to help. Thanks. Take care.